What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the PokerNews Podcast. We are live from the Pavilion Room. Me, Sarah Herring, your girl, with your boy, Jeff Platt, getting after it. If you're with us live, you can see the decorations of the Pavilion. If you're not, be sure to catch us live next time because it's way worth it. Before we get too balls deep into this episode, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Global Poker. Global Poker is the home of online poker in America, thanks to their massive weekly tournament schedule and the chance to score a six-figure payday in just a couple minutes through their jackpot sit and goes, with real cash prizes delivered straight to your bank account and more than 1 million registered players in the United States. If you're not playing Global Poker, then you are missing out. Head to www.globalpoker.com and set up an account today. Now, Jeff.
Yes.
I had a little bit of a panic attack yesterday because I did a live stream and I was super busy with that, not paying any attention to what was going on. As I'm sure you know, when there's like 7 or 8 events going on at one time, it's hard to keep track of them all, but basically there was 5 players left in the 7-card stud championship. And then about 2 hours later, when I was done podcasting, it was heads up.
But with 2 unknown players, right? So it didn't matter, like, if you stuck around or no.
Yeah, so you were there watching the whole thing. Why don't you catch me up on, like, how did we go from 5 to 2, and, like, who were the 2?
All right, so it was a star-studded final table anchored by the chip leader going into the final day of the 10K 7-card stud event. That would be Real Kid Poker, Mr. Daniel Negreanu himself, looking for bracelet number 7. But he was dealing with quite the final table. We had Frank Casella, our guy, the guy who's just like always positive. You know, Frank Casella, by the way, ran so bad, and he just like snap busted in 7th. Still in a great mood, still a great interview after, still carrying around those positive vibes. He's the man. You had Chris Treba in 6th, David Singer, how about that for an old school name, finishing in 5th. Mikhail Semin, this is a guy who, both in the 10K horse and the 10K stud, was all in probably a combined between those 2 tournaments 40 times and just laddered his way up.
Laddered his way up.
Yeah, this is the Russian.
Okay.
And he finished in 4th for 73K. David ODB Baker, quite the performance for him. He finished in 3rd, winning a little bit more than 100K. And then your final 2, your heads-up battle, Sarah, was Daniel Negreanu against Johnny World Hennigan. How about that? Hennigan looking for his 6th bracelet, Negreanu looking for his 7th.
The 7th?
For his 7th.
Wait, Daniel has more than
bracelet.
Hennigan?
Well, not anymore. Not after Hennigan beat Negreanu in quite the heads-up battle last night.
So they're 6 and 6 now.
6 and 6, exactly.
Wow. Oh my gosh. For some reason, I thought Hennigan had more than Daniel. So that is totally my bad. And so when I finished the podcast, I was kind of panicking because I thought if Daniel wins this bracelet and I'm not there and my camera guy's not there, I'm going to be in deep trouble.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a tough call because I will say there have been a lot of final tables where I've had a sweat of like a couple of sick players, and it's not uncommon for Hennigan to come out on top in those situations. But knowing how much Daniel has on the line in terms of bracelet bets and side action, fantasy points, knowing how many fans are out there with pieces of him with no markup, I feel like Daniel has to be in a different spot, and I'm curious. I actually didn't get to see almost any of the final table, but once he got heads up, once he was that close, what was Daniel like? What was his behavior like?
Well, I mean, I think he was very optimistic and very confident. He took a hit at the beginning of play when they were 7-handed and almost immediately took that chip lead back. And he was chip leader throughout the entire stretch of the tournament. Going into heads up against John Hennigan, he was probably about a 2-to-1 chip leader or so, and you know, the way heads up limit games can go, the tide can turn. If Hennigan wins 3 or 4 big pots in a row, that's exactly what happened. Now you'll hear from Hennigan in a little bit, but his main points were, I did play really well up until heads up. In heads up, I played poorly, Daniel played great, and I just ran really well. And I think Daniel had the same types of things to say. Listen, there might not be a player in 7-card stud who Daniel Negreanu respects more than John Hennigan. And there might not be a player in 7-card stud that John Hennigan respects more than Daniel Negreanu, especially after this heads-up battle. So let's do this. Let's just go ahead and toss to that John Hennigan sound. This is John Hennigan right after he won his 6th World Series of Poker bracelet.
Oh, go ahead.
Tell us about the duel. That's the big story.
It was a very tough duel, especially for me. He played so well, and I played so poorly. He really did not get what he deserved there. It was really, he made every right decision. I made every wrong decision, and it was just bad luck for him there at the end. I mean, I played a very good tournament up to that point, but I really needed luck there when it got to the heads-up. I mean, he played great the whole time. I believe I did as well, but heads-up, he clearly had me and had some horrible luck. But, you know, that's how it goes.
With all that said, what does this bracelet mean to you?
It's a little more special than other ones. I've always fancied myself a very good stud player. I mean, I'm good at a lot of the games, but I really feel like I'm an expert at stud, and sort of has some sentimental value to me. I mean, if people say I'm the best at that game, and I've always felt that it's true. And, you know, it's just a good sealer, you know. Very happy with it.
As someone who's still talked about as one of the best cash game players in the world, you keep building and building on that tournament resume.
Yeah.
Throughout the year, when you are grinding those cash games, how much do you think about, you know, where you stand among the greats in the game, which you are always sort of mentioned in?
As far as I mean, I kind of feel like I'm already there. I don't think I need to add to my resume for that. Coming here to the World Series is just kind of fun to square off against some good competition in tournament setting, because, you know, we don't get to do that any other time in mixed games. It's always no limit hold'em, and it's fun to be here, and it's just an incredible feeling to play a tournament and go deep, and then not have to lose it. As if even, you know, that's more important than winning it. It seems like, you know, I really feel for Daniel right now. I mean, but, you know, obviously he's had a ton of success, and, you know, just my turn today.
Do you see the World Series of Poker as a break from a very intense grind throughout the rest of the year, or is this just as intense for you?
Not at all. I find this to be really more intense because, you know, once you're in it, you can't quit. You're stuck in it. There's no escape until you go broke, and you're fighting not to go broke all the time. I mean, I'm playing very big cash games right now, but if things go bad, I could just quit and walk away and come back later. You know, here, things go bad, you got to try and get yourself together, and, you know, it's a great challenge, you know, for everybody.
From a satisfaction point of view, winning a tournament, winning a bracelet, is there any way to compare that to a streak in cash games or one session or a big moment?
No, this is just much different. It's much more satisfying, you know, I think anyway. I mean, the only thing I'm thinking now, I wish I'd played better heads up, but I didn't, but I still won, and, you know, I'm not unhappy with my performance overall, but, you know, I hate to play shitty and win like that.
One more for me, about Daniel in particular. He sold action to his fans and investors. It was a big rail out for him. Obviously, you know, you were getting some Johnny World chance, but there was a lot of kid poker going on there on the rail. Are you aware of how big this moment was for him? It had been 11 years since he won a bracelet in Vegas. He's still trying to get one after all those years.
He hasn't won a World Series tournament in 11 years?
Well, in Vegas. He won one in Australia.
Oh, okay. No, I was not aware of that at all. No, I mean, you know, when I think him, I think, you know, 15 years ago when poker started to grow, and, you know, how much work he did on his game to really stay current with all these young kids in the No Limit Hold'em. You know, he was never an expert at these games. He's so good at everything now, and I really respect what he's done. You know, a lot of guys like me, I mean, I play great, and I'm not taking away from myself, but he really improved his game in ways, you know. I mean, he took that position as like the ambassador of poker. He's like a known player, and he worked at it, you know, and he improved his game, and he deserves to be where he's at right now, I think.
Now, with 6 bracelets, you're where he's at in terms
Yeah,
of that.
I don't think I'm where he's at, but
But
you know.
how do you feel about yourself now moving up the all-time ranks?
Oh, I don't really think about that too much. I mean, I was generally pretty happy having 5. You know, this is just more a sentimental thing for the stud, and I'm, you know, happy with it.
Stud bracelet does mean a little extra for you?
Yeah, I'm happier with this than I would be with anything, to be honest with you.
So, what I think is interesting is that basically what was said when I was rereading the blog from last night is that it's kind of understood that John Hennigan is the best 7-card stud player in the world. And I'm saying that about anyone basically ever, even in any variant of poker, is really, really difficult. So is that sort of the general vibe that was going around?
Yeah, I think so, and it's interesting that you note that because as he said, Hennigan, afterwards, he said, this bracelet means a little bit more to me because it's in stud, and he basically said this like solidifies his ranking among 7-card stud players. I do agree with what you just said and what a lot of people have just said, that John Hennigan just might be the very best 7-card stud player in the world. I saw this Lance Bradley tweet from last night. This was pretty cool. The first time that 2 members of the Poker Hall of Fame were heads up for a bracelet, like already inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Wow.
These 2 are already Poker Hall of Famers, and they were heads up for a World Series of Poker bracelet. How cool is that?
It's so sick, but it's interesting because I came over to talk to you last night. I was trying to get sort of just a sense of what was going on and, whether or not it made sense to go home.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to tell what was going on.
Yeah. So, deep breath. Because this is something that really, really bothered me. It's bothered me throughout the series, like we've talked about this before, but especially last night. First, let me say, I know some WSOP staffers listen to us, and we appreciate that. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening. And let me also say, I think the World Series of Poker does an incredible job managing this show. Incredible. Not just a good job, incredible job with all the logistics that they have to look over. I mean, any big tournament stop in the rest of the world has 1,000 or so entries in its main event. The World Series of Poker has 8,000. Like, long story short, that just shows you how much bigger the WSOP is than anything else. And the WSOP manages that crowd to the best of their ability, and I think they do great, and they get better and better at it every single year. They just had the Big 50 with more than 28,000 entries. So what I'm about to say is not a knock on anybody who works for the WSOP. What I'm about to say, I want to...
Who pays the bills? That's where we're trying to get it to.
I want them to start thinking about this because I think it's important for the future of this game so poker can continue to grow. If you, Sarah Herring, like you just said, this was actually you. You came up and you wanted to know what was going on in the 7-card stud tournament.
And by the way, there was a lot of people around.
There were a lot of people around because you can see Daniel Negreanu on stage. You can see John Hennigan there. You could see that they're heads up for a bracelet. And the buck really stops there because that's all you could see. That's all you could pay attention to. It's very hard to just look at action on a monitor and be able to tell what's going on because, like we discussed last podcast, this year, there's no World Series of Poker tournament director, floor staff member that's announcing the action. So you don't get a Negreanu draws the 3 of clubs on 3rd Street, Hennigan draws the ace of spades, it's on John Hennigan to act, he bets 20,000. You don't get any of that. You're just watching. It's silent. So if you're an expert in 7-card stud, it's still hard for you to know what's going on.
You can't even really see is part of the problem, which makes sense. How are you going to get everybody's cards without dragging them into a zoomed-in shot? It's really hard, even on the screen, to tell what cards people have.
And as we've also mentioned, they switched back to the small face RFID cards, which again I think look fantastic on the stream, and I think overall those are better for a poker broadcast, but if you're in the audience it just makes it that much more difficult to see. So it's hard to see the action on the monitors. There's nobody announcing. So I just think you have 2 Poker Hall of Famers who are heads up for a bracelet in one of the most prestigious tournaments that there is, and there's just no buzz there. There's no real atmosphere there. There's some applause here and there, mainly when the crowd saw Daniel drag a pot, but it just wasn't where it needed to be. And it's really frustrating when the WSOP has these opportunities to really hype this up. They're like, hey, we have Daniel Negreanu playing heads up for a World Series of Poker bracelet. Come on by the Amazon Arena. The place is going to be rocking. You're going to be able to see and hear everything that's going on. Much like the WPT has started to do with their final tables. They turn it into a live viewing experience. And if you're from out of town and you want to come by the World Series of Poker and you stop by that final table and you're like, oh, cool, Daniel Negreanu's playing heads up for a bracelet. Cool, I'll stay and watch this. And then you wait for a minute and you're like, oh, wow, this is pretty boring. It'd be so much more entertaining if they had all the extra accompaniments that they need to have, especially some that they've had in the past. I mean, Jack Heffel is one of the hardest working guys here, and I'm sure he works, 12 hours a day for 40 or 45 straight days. But if you're understaffed or something, Jack, you need to just come by and announce this final table.
We need you.
Like really. There are dealers who wait on the side before being called in to deal at the feature table. Have one of the dealers be the announcers. Like, you've got to figure it out. They needed a ruling. Listen to this. They needed a ruling because somebody's card was exposed. I didn't catch the specifics. So the dealer calls for the floor, okay? But there's no floor staff member even watching over this. It's a 10K stud event. So dealer calls for the floor. There's nobody there. Other dealer who's waiting calls for the floor. And so they finally pull a floor member from the 1K Super Seniors event. It's like, come on. We have Negreanu and Hennigan heads up for a World Series of Poker bracelet. A floor person needs to be there at all times. Like, it's just mind-boggling to me. Like, we have to ramp things up from a viewer's perspective, from a live viewing experience. We had somebody, shout out to Rachel, podcast listener. She was there in the audience, and I was asking her about her experience, and she said, quote, "I didn't know what was going on." And she knows poker. It's too hard to tell what's going on. Like, come on, let's get it together. This should be easy. It should be, like, super hyped up, super promoted, and you want to have a packed house, and you want that place to be loud and rocking, and that'll make the stream look better, and everything will look better. And people who come in town for their first World Series of Poker experience, they'll have thoroughly enjoyed it because they were there at an unbelievable atmosphere, and they had the potential for that atmosphere, and they just did not live up to that potential.
What was the reaction from Daniel and John, for example, in a situation like this where you have to actually get a floor from another tournament? Did they seem
I don't think so. They seem pretty, like, calm about the whole thing, and even that didn't take that long. It's more the thought of it, that they had to bring in a floor man from the 1K Super Seniors event. All due respect to the 1K Super Seniors event, and that's tough to run. So I don't know if it's a staffing issue, if you need to hire more.
They did go an extra day, I know, in that event.
Right,
but I think that is one of the things which is interesting that we've already talked about, is some events that maybe don't need an extra day taking it, and maybe some events that, like, do need an extra day that don't do it. And I definitely think that there's, some issues which are always needing to be ironed out and worked out. And I'm curious, actually, what Daniel's demeanor was like after, the last card was dealt.
He was pretty positive. Like, he and Negreanu hugged. I think Daniel realized that he played really well, so he's disappointed, of course. But, like, it'd be difficult to tell that he was really, really upset. I think he told me when we did an interview to start our broadcast on CBS All Access and Poker Go, subscribe now. He told me that he felt like he was.
People have been asking where to watch it, so that's good to address.
He told me he was just kind of hitting his stride, this WSOP, and for him, it's just on to the next one today, like jumping in the 25K PLL high roller.
I need to get on because I just did on Wednesday. I just did a update on the Player of the Year race, but I'm thinking 2 final tables now for Daniel. He's got to be inching his way up, right?
Yeah, I think this puts him in the top 10-ish. I know a win would have put him in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
So I think he's close to the top 10, which means he's super live because, as we know, he's going to play every single event.
Yeah, okay. Well, we talked on Wednesday also about the Shaun Deeb, 10K Dealer's Choice debacle, and him being unhappy with coming back. And it was ultimately Adam Friedman who took down that event. And I asked him in his winner's interview, was there any validity to what Shaun had said? Did he go home and study 5-card draw high? And Adam said absolutely not. He said had anybody wanted to stop, he was always going to be on the side of that person. And, whether or not we'll ever know, I'm not sure. But the fact that he did win the event last year, I think would say that he must have a certain amount of familiarity with all the games.
Yeah.
And I did ask him about the games that he was choosing and why he was choosing those games. It did seem like, for example, it seemed like Shaun Deeb and Matt Glantz were choosing like more of the big bet games, and that it seemed like Friedman was staying away from those games. And he said, that really actually wasn't any specific choice, but that, he's careful about what games he chooses and where he thinks he has even micro edges. But he was actually very generous with praise for Shaun Deeb and for the way that Shaun Deeb played, and he actually said he got really lucky in a few spots where it very easily could have gone the other way. So I don't know, it was an interesting interview, but I did also feel like Friedman had a little bit of frustration at being called out in this specific spot, but he also was very humble and generous. So I don't know, it's interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how things continue on with Shaun and his Player of the Year journey.
I mean, obviously you can never count on this. I mean, I stuck to my basic strategy, which I'm doing with this tournament for day 1 and day 2. Got fairly decent table draws in order to execute what I wanted early on, but in terms of actually winning it, I basically forced myself not to think that until we got down to about 8, 9, 10 players. Even though I had the chip lead going into day 3, I just tried not getting too overly excited and thinking I'm going to do this, because obviously things can change so quickly. You can be chip leader 11, go out in 9th, just as easily. I just thought if I played my best, kept trying to find weaknesses, which some people, Shaun, Deeb, and like Mac Lance, and especially Nick Schulman, who was at the final table earlier. Nick Schulman might be arguably the best player I played with all tournament. Sometimes because just don't have weaknesses, so sometimes you do have to stick to your best games, which isn't always necessarily my strategy. But I'm just fortunate everything worked out, and hit a couple key hands against Shaun heads up.
Well, that's something I was going to ask you about. It seemed like Shaun, a few of the players were choosing more of the big bet games, that you were choosing some of the other ones. Is that your strategy? Do you feel like you're stronger or not as strong in the big bet games?
I'm very comfortable playing big. I've made a ton of improvement in no limit hold'em in the last couple of years. If we had to play all no limit, all right, I'm game to go. I mean, Shaun figures to be a better player than me. It's a much smaller margin than I believe he thinks it is, if I were to guess. But overall, I mean, he's an incredible poker player. Like I said, he's obviously better than no limit hold'em. But I'm just trying to pick games. I want to mix it up. I haven't played a ton of cash with Shaun. I mean, we played heads up in my best game 4 years ago in the 1500 stud, and he just made we kept making hand over hand, and he just won every spot. So even when you're playing your best game, it doesn't always work out your way. So I wanted to mix it up with the split pot draw games, a lot of the draw games, which I've put a ton of work in over the last few years. And I just kept making, on the whole, I kept making a few more better hands in certain spots. But yeah, in terms of big bet, sometimes I'll play big bet when the situation's right. I pick Big O a ton. I've played a lot of Big O in the last 2 years out west in LA. But when the situation's right, I'm liable to call the 20 games. I'm easily liable to call 10 to 14 of the games easily when the situation calls for it.
Well, when I spoke to Shaun this morning, he said that he thought that maybe you wanted to end last night so that you could study up on some of the games that he was calling. Is there any truth to that?
Not at all. No. I'm a very big believer in the rules need to be followed. If one person objected, I didn't care who it was. I didn't care if it was Michael. I didn't care if it was Shaun or the other two gentlemen at the final table. If one person objected, I didn't care who it was. I was siding with that person. I don't believe anybody should get favoritism. I'd rather not go on a rant. This could be a different story. There are a lot of people I would absolutely call out in the poker world, much more so than anybody that was at this final table. But again, I'm going to try to show a little bit of discretion for once in my life.
Well, that's a huge respect for that, actually. And so speaking, though, of these sort of controversial things, the things that everybody has opinions on, in the 25K fantasy draft, obviously there's been all kinds of hullabaloo about that. And I was just wondering, do you have yourself? I know you were one of the first picks. Are you on your own team in the draft?
I got drafted on my own team for $2. It was an absolute insult as far as I'm concerned. I decided I was going to play about 7, 8 more tournaments as a result of it. Almost just to spite people. I can find a lot of motivation in a lot of things in life. Anger is one of them, which I have no problems admitting at all. I thrive on anger and people doubting me.
So many people said you were a favorite before the draft even started, so that's incredible to me.
I mean, if people want to keep doubting me, they can draft me for $2 again next year. And if I'm on my own team, I'm going to go a lot more. If anybody else drafts me, I could always just go to Bellagio for the month.
I mean, I'm telling you, take that, you guys. Well, it's a huge congratulations. And just before I let you go, can we talk a little bit about what we can expect to see you in the rest of the summer? I heard there's like many bracelets more in your future.
Well, my best event is just started today, the 10K stud. I'm going to join in a few hours from now. I just want to hang out with my parents for a little bit. I told my mom the next time I want a bracelet, I'd make sure it would be when she was in town. She made me promise her that I'd do that. So, it didn't have to be this year, but if it was this year and she wasn't in town, I couldn't win it then. So
shout out to Mom.
So,
thank you guys so much.
Yeah. So the 10K stud, I'm I'm a favorite to play the 50K 8 game this year, and beyond that, I mean, I'll see what happens. I'm not committed to doing anything.
Yeah, it seemed like Friedman and Deeb were kind of chirping at each other the second to last day of the tournament. We had that whole issue that we've discussed that you mentioned. And then even before play started at that dealer's choice final table, they started chirping at each other again. I think Friedman told Deeb, like, if you slow roll me in front of my parents, I'll blank, blank, blank. And so they kept going at it, and the four has to be like, guys, calm down. Let's just play cards. Let's have a final table. Let's fight for the bracelet. And then actually, like, once they got to heads up, it was actually pretty calm and pretty civil. Maybe not what we would have expected.
Let's talk about the slow roll thing, because I don't know about this, but I was just like looking on Poker News yesterday, and I saw in the muck for today is an article talking about Daniel's stance on slow rolling and something that he had said on slow rolling, which I haven't seen. Did you hear about this or what?
I just think, I'm not sure why specifically Daniel decided to tweet about this.
Problem?
But, it's clearly a shot at Shaun Deeb. Yeah, because Shaun, as we know, loves to slow roll. And we also know that Daniel does not love Shaun, and that Shaun does not love Daniel. So, I don't know why it came up. The tweet from Negreanu, don't slow roll people, it's sociopathic behavior. People get emotionally involved when playing poker, and slow rolling them is like kicking them when they're down. It's not funny, it's not classy, it's just rude. Now, overall, I agree with that, unless you're like really good friends. At our podcast tournament night.
Oh yeah.
I'll probably slow roll.
So
Yeah. I will slow roll like crazy.
Like, you get extra points for it.
And so Shaun Deeb responded to him, "It's a good thing you have so much free time this summer to write rules for how other people should play and enjoy poker, just like you tell them how to be on social media, as well as what to eat. Should have a logo made so we know what's D-Negs approved." So I mean, these two are just gonna they're going to do battle from here until the end of time.
Right? D-Negs approved?
Yeah, that actually would be pretty cool. Yeah.
Shaun, you're rich. Come on, get it going.
I'll
help you with the production. Man, okay. Well, I mean, what would poker be without these little dramas and battles?
Right,
and actually,
do
you know what the bet is with Shaun Deeb and Johnny Vibes? I feel like Shaun Deeb has so much side. Like, every time I'm hearing of a side bet going on, Shaun's in it somewhere, somehow. And I've heard about almost all the bets, but I didn't actually know what the Johnny Vibes Shaun Deeb bet is. And somebody brought it up to me today, and I didn't want to act like I didn't know.
Right. All I know is that it's some kind of bet on the events that they're both playing. So, they maybe have 10 similar events on the schedule. I'm sure those are mostly like 1,500 to 5K, no limit hold'em events. And there's some kind of bet on that. And other than that, I'm not sure of the specifics. Ravi Straczynski in the chat, do not slow roll me or you will suffer.
Oh,
Straczynski's don't show up there.
This keeps happening. And I got to figure out what's going on, but it keeps happening where we don't get the comments until the thing is over.
Until the end.
Yeah, which is horrible. So you can at least maybe keep track on there. Yesterday, I interviewed Joseph Chong early in the day. It was crazy. This was another situation where we came in. This was the $1,000 double stack event, which had almost $700,000 up top, which was super, super crazy, more than 6,000 entries. And I came into the day, there was 5 players left, and, that was like at noon or 11, whenever it started. By the time we finished shooting something, it was early in the afternoon, and it was already over. I nearly missed it. By the time I went out there, pictures had already been taken. And of course, Joseph Chong, in true Joseph Chong fashion, was just super nonchalant, super chill about it. I asked him, his response was basically, and we've talked a little bit about this, that the deep stack events are... Some people are saying the structures are too long, the structures are too good, which is hysterical, like too good of structures. And Joseph Chong said he was probably one of the biggest complainers on Twitter about it, and then also said, complain on Twitter a lot and then win an event. So I'm definitely looking to move more in that direction and see if that's not something like a tool I can put in my arsenal. More complaining on Twitter, more winning. But then it was also pretty hysterical because I asked him, he's a local here, and you might not know it, but Joseph Chong can party. And I said, you going out, you getting crazy, what's going on? And he said, oh yeah, the hosts are already contacting me. And then he tweeted out like 10 minutes later that his host at Spearmint Rhino already was like, yeah, we got a table for you. This was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So just Las Vegas. We degen hard here. There's no play.
He tweets a text right after his bracelet win. Hello, Joseph. This is Vince from Spearmint Rhino. Let me be the first to congratulate you on your bracelet. We have our VIP area set up for your arrival. Let me know if I can send you transportation. We look forward to seeing you tonight. Now, that was just one of his friends trolling him, but that was a fantastic tweet. More than 1,500 likes on that one. He's a guy who I think he admitted that from around 2014 to 2017 he wasn't studying much. He was just playing, and he wasn't having as good of years as he potentially could have, so he kind of recommitted himself to the game, and it's good to see him finally show up with a bracelet. It makes sense that the final table went fast. When Joseph Chong has a lot of chips, he's going to use those chips. He's going to put those chips into play.
A7,
impressive.
dude. I'll never forget.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
Was it 2009, 2010? It was 2010, I think. It was my first
2010.
World Series of Poker, my first, November 9, and I just remember watching him play and just thinking, like, this kid is such a sicko. I think he took third in that event, but he definitely showed that he had all the balls, like all the balls.
Yeah.
And next to the event, next to Daniel Negreanu and Hennigan playing in the championship, Ishmael Bojang was on the sub-feature table winning his first bracelet, which a huge congratulations to him. He's a player that's come close quite a few times. He's gone deep in a ton of events, and I was super happy to see him take something down.
Yeah,
with his jewelry home.
How about that? I think both Chong and Bojang are probably on our list going into the summer of like best players to have never won a bracelet, and they both got it done on the same day, so that's pretty cool. Bojang's a really nice guy, really down to earth. He had quite the rail. He had that German contingent there. He had one guy who kept like running up to the table to take a picture, which is like not allowed once, but if you do it again and again and again, the floor is eventually going to have you escorted from the premises. And so he did have one guy on his reel get kicked out. The floor was nice enough to let him back in for the winner's photo. This guy let out a huge Tarzan roar, which you could hear on the stream for the 10K 7-card stud. You could hear the roars in the background. I mean, he just had a super enthusiastic rail. I know he had a 2 p.m. flight today. I asked him what the odds were of catching that flight, and he said that it was a true flip. So I wonder if he made it, because Dietrich Fast was telling me he's going to be out until at least 8 a.m. So
we
we'll
know he didn't commit to the bracelet ceremonies. So if he didn't make it, it's not because he's here. That's for sure.
That much is true. So what's up to? I'll just run through them. David, Michael, Mark, Michael Lee, Robbie, AJ. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, and for the nice compliments for Jeff being such a good commentator.
Oh, yes, thank you.
He did just, we were in the ladies event here a little bit ago, and he did have someone say, wow, you have such a great commentary voice. And it's sad because you don't get to see the dimples when that's going on, but we all have to agree. And actually just coming out from the ladies event.
Yeah, how is the ladies event?
Oh, that reminds me, I forgot to give one of the names to my camera guy, but I just talked to Alan Schulman on her way out, and she was on her way to quickly run and rail Barry Schulman, who is in the final four of the Super Seniors event. That's one of the bracelets going out today. It seems like it was a lot of bracelet action yesterday. There was also a bracelet in a WSOP.com online event, and it was, oh my gosh, I want to say it was like outfielder or like...
I don't know who won, but how about the run for our girl Sasha?
Shout out to our girl Sasha, who took 14th for just shy of 7K. And I did, in fact, write down what his name was, I think. So let's see if I can get it. It was center fielder.
Center fielder. Outfielder, center fielder. Yeah.
That's the worst. Congratulations to center fielder. It was crazy because I shot the LFG podcast stream yesterday, and both the ladies were playing that tournament while we were streaming, and I couldn't believe some of the people that were in the tournament. It was basically a who's who of, sick online players too, where I was like, is this really good value? I'm not sure.
Right.
Some of these players are crazy and play, at the nosebleeds in Europe and stuff. So I was definitely, I think that it's worth a huge congratulations to people who are taking down these events, and of course to Sasha.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and Ben Ludlow in the chat, didn't he just go really deep in a PLO, the 1500 PLO?
20th in the 1500 PLO. So bravo, Ben.
Second deep run for Ben. Good job. Maybe
you could
more,
win next time. That'd be nice. But 20th is very good. He's surprised I didn't put on a suit for the ladies event today. That would have been a good strategy.
Wow, Oh, so
yeah, I
handsome.
need to reconsider that one.
So handsome.
Can you find me a date from the women's? It'd be too awkward if I went in.
Yes.
You know, this is the one time of the year that women don't get awkwardly hit on.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't want to bother anybody. But if I could send you in as my wing woman,
I feel like we could find
that'd be
you.
great.
I was actually pleasantly surprised. And just to let you guys know, so it is day one of the ladies. This is apparently Ladies Week, which is the first I'd ever heard of it, but apparently it's been going on for years now. But it truly is. It's really just, it's such a great event. If you are a lady out there and you're watching and you missed it this year, it's well worth coming. In fact, $1,000 is out of my normal wheelhouse of buy-ins, but I have bought into the ladies event specifically because it's just such a nice vibe. It's such a great tournament. I'm sorry if you guys have a ween and you can't join in, but if you got the V and you can join, please do. We'll keep you guys updated as that goes down. I was actually just trying to talk to Jeff about when we're going to be able to do this again. I am going home for a little bit, so we'll be shooting. I know, not next to each other anymore, which is so depressing. And thank you, by the way, Michael, for your good wishes. But yeah, I think my guess is we'll probably be coming to you guys on Monday. We, as always, will tweet out before we go live so you guys can join in with us. You can follow me, Auntie Chardonnay. Jeff Platt. Anything else we need to let him know before we let him go?
I do believe that's it, but we'll have some more sound Monday from some of the winners from this weekend.
Yeah,
I do believe.
And I don't think I left myself a place to put in Adam Friedman's audio clip, which I feel like I should. I'll try to find a place in there. In the meantime, we'll give a final shout out to our sponsors, Global Poker. Definitely check it out if you have not. If you are not playing on Global Poker, then you are missing out. Head to www.globalpoker.com and set up an account today. And finally, we will leave you with a little message from our homies at Odds Checker. Deuces.